one of the principles that we try to apply as we engage with African militaries is it's insufficient for an African military to be technically or tactically competent. They have to have that. That's an essential ingredient, but it's not sufficient. In addition to being competent, they also have to really adopt military values. They have to truly believe in subordination of military forces to legitimate civilian control. They have to commit themselves to operating according to the rules of warfare and human rights. They have to see themselves not only as protectors of the nation, but protectors of the people. So we try to reinforce those values as we engage with African militaries. The results are mixed, but there are some very positive indicators. Here in Cameroon, you do have a military that very clearly subordinates itself to civilian control.
America's strategic guidance also calls for aiding global access, the building of partnerships, humanitarian assistance when needed, and the prevention and response to mass atrocities. These are all very broad statements. How does Africa Command address these tasks?
We see the military engagement in Africa as one more tool that a U.S. ambassador has. We engage at multiple levels with African military. So you saw me here today with the Minister of Defense, with the Chief of Defense, the service chiefs, senior commanders. That's important, and we have important discussions at those levels. I would argue what's more important are sergeants and lieutenants engaging at their levels. They have interaction with the future generations of leaders in African militaries. So we try to take a multi-echeloned approach, if you will, to our engagement. As we train African forces for deployment to a place like Somalia or many other places, and we do what we call in the U.S. military situational training exercises, a situation with a particular focus. What we'll do in some of those situational training exercises, we'll have an African patrol, for example, come across a situation in a village or a town where someone from the town accuses a soldier of sexually abusing or raping someone in the town, and they have to deal with that. It's a real problem. Gender-based violence is a real problem, not just in Africa, but certainly in Africa. So the opportunity to practice that, to deal with that, to get that subject on the table for discussion is one way we can influence those kinds of behaviors.
Are they receptive?
Yes. More so, what they're not receptive to, kind of the same things that America's soldiers are not receptive to. If you put me in an auditorium and some guy puts up a PowerPoint slide and says, today we're going to talk about gender-based violence, well, you're not going to be very effective. But when you integrate it in a realistic scenario that the soldiers can relate to, then it tends to be more effective. It's harder because you're talking, it's squad and platoon size engagement, so it takes a much longer time to do it, but I'm convinced it's more effective.
Sir, you have on occasion pointed out that we as a nation don't give enough focus on intelligence gathering here in Africa. Is this still a concern?
It remains very much a concern. We do have a very sophisticated intelligence system that's operative in Africa as it is in many other places. But given the size of the continent and the complexity and diversity of security challenges, we don't have all of the technical systems that I would like to have to collect intelligence. We're slowly trying to build improved human intelligence capabilities. But frankly, the Africans will always be better than we are in that regard. The real challenge for us is how do we combine our efforts? How do we bring the best of what the U.S. brings, which tends to be technological, with the very best that the Africans bring, which is human and cultural understanding and knowledge of the terrain and clan or tribal complexities. And then how do you bring that together in a way that is useful to an African commander or to an African decision maker so that they can make better decisions with regard to their plans and policies.
Have they come forward with possible solutions?
Sure. Again, mixed results. In some places we have helped African countries form what we call an intelligence fusion center, where you bring together all the multiple organizations that deal in the intelligence business and have a place where that gets consolidated, a more free flow of information, so that a decision maker, a commander, is presented a more comprehensive analysis than whether just getting it exclusively from a military analyst or exclusively from a technical system.
Sir, Africa is a continent where regions, tribes, and even religion have significant impact. How does AFRICOM engage on such broad cultural differences?
Well, first is to recognize there is no one Africa. In fact, one of the clearest senses that someone doesn't really know what they're talking about is if they say, well, the Africans think this or the Africans believe that. I mean, there's no universal African view. We begin by approaching the challenges from a regional standpoint, and we apply the same geographic regions as does the African Union through its regional economic communities. That format works pretty well. But even inside regions, there's significant differences between countries, their capabilities, their styles of government, and what have you. With a regional focus, then we also, in partnership with the ambassadors, develop individual country teams or country plans that focus on, what is the U.S. military component to what that ambassador is trying to achieve in that particular country.